Defending the Sabbath Part 13, since Christ is our righteousness, we are no longer required to keep the Sabbath.
What is our righteousness now in the New Testament? Remember, what was the Old Testament righteousness? Doing the works of the law, being obedient. God gave us this law, and if you're careful to do everything in it, that will be our righteousness. In the New Testament, we have in Philippians 3:9, says, I may be found in him. And this is Paul talking. He's given his testimony to people. And in his testimony, he just got through talking about all these wonderful rules that he used to follow and rely on to be right before God. And after he lists all these rules, he says, but now I may be found in him, Jesus, not having a righteousness of my own that comes through the law, but that which is through faith in Christ. The righteousness that comes from God on the basis of faith, not on keeping your Sabbath day holy. This is where you get your righteousness. It's from Christ, your faith in Christ. And it's something that is attributed to you. It's not that you have become righteous. I'm not righteous in myself, but I am counted righteous before God. Christ's righteousness covers the person who has faith in Christ.
Romans 10:4. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes.
Is this true? Christ came to abolish the Ten Commandments?
Matter of fact, I would point my opponent to 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, that says that the definition of sin is this. Sin is the transgression of God's law. So if my opponent's correct and the law of God is done away with, then we don't have a single other definition of sin in the entire Bible, then we've got a theological nightmare on our hands, because the Baptist organization alone over the last 50 years has spent $2 billion on missions to tell people about Jesus around the world, which is a lofty and amazing goal that I fully support. But why are we telling anybody about Jesus if the law of God is done away with? Because the definition of sin is breaking the law of God. And so if the law of God's done away with, there's no definition of sin. There's no reason to tell them that they need Jesus for what? For breaking something that doesn't exist. We should save our money in that case. I would suggest that we're reading the Scriptures wrong. We don't understand the definition of God's law in the first century, and the idiomatic expressions and the oral law and everything puts together in the way that it is. And here's why. When he says under the law, we're no longer under the law, I'll cut to the chase and let you know that it's not in American English. The way we read that is we're no longer under the law, meaning that we don't have to keep it. In English today, it's a legal expression that means exactly the way it means today. The Constitution of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, is not done away with. If we are under the law, that means you broke it. You're under it. You're under the penalty of the law. It's an idiomatic expression in Hebrew, first century culture, that was very obvious, that you're not under the penalty of the law. God came not to remove what he called his word, which ended up being made flesh. He came to remove the penalty.
No one can be saved by observing the law. Please understand that. No one can be saved by observing the law. You don't follow the law to be saved. You follow it because you are saved. Obeying the law is the fruit of your salvation, not the root of your salvation. Consider a little farther down in Galatians. Galatians chapter 5, verse 4. You are severed from Christ, you who would be justified by the law. You have fallen away from grace. One cannot be saved by their works, but rather we are saved and then our works prove our salvation. But the works do not save you. There is no redemptive value in keeping the law, meaning keeping the law cannot redeem you. You cannot be justified for your salvation through keeping of the law of God. Salvation is only found in the work of Christ. However, once in Christ, we pursue obedience in the law as Christ exemplified for us. As 1 John says, 1 John chapter 2, verse 6, whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way in which he walked.
As we can see, there is no change to the Ten Commandments. Now we just have to decide whose rules we will follow.
King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 90 feet high. All were commanded to fall down and worship, and all did as commanded. except for 3.
Live forever! A moment of your precious time. As your dutiful servants, we know the law, that when the horn sounds, we all bow down and worship your image.
But these Jews, whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, pay no attention to you, O king.
None. They neither worship your gods or serve the image of gold you have created. Nothing.
Is this true? You refuse to worship my statue?
O king, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter.
Really? Then you shall be thrown into the furnace, and no god will save you from my hand.
If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, our God will defend us from it.
And if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the statue of...
Enough! You dare to defy me? Let the furnace be heated 7-fold. Bind them and cast them into the fire.
There were 3 thrown into the fire.
Certainly, O king.
But now I see 4. And the fourth looks like an angel of God.
The fire has not harmed your bodies. Not a hair is singed. Your robes, there's not even the smell of the fire on you. Praise be to your God, who sent his angel to rescue his servants. You trusted in him. You defied my commands. You were willing to give up your lives rather than serve any but your own God.
End part 13.